When the 1970 season for Formula One racing cars opens in South Africa next month, there'll be a new challenger from Britain, the March 701. The surprising thing about the 701 is that it was built by a company which didn't even exist 6 months ago. March Engineering was formed in October last year. Its small factory in Bicester, England, already has far more orders than it can cope with. Most of the money behind the venture has been provided by an American oil company, and a good deal of technical backing has come from other large firms involved in automotive engineering. The speed with which the whole project's been achieved has staggered the motor racing world. It's largely due to the drive and enthusiasm of the 4 young men who run March. One of them is Robin Hurd, 31-year-old designer of the 701.
Robin Hurd, you designed this car. How long did it take you?
We started the design work on October the 1st and started building it on November the 1st. And, you know, this is now early February. It took about 5 or 6 weeks to design. About 13 weeks to build it.
Isn't that a record time for something as complex as a Formula One car?
I suppose for some firms it's very good, but there are 1 or 2 firms already involved in Formula One racing who are very good at building cars very quickly. McLaren's an obvious example.
This isn't your maiden venture into car design, is it?
No, I was lucky enough to be able to work with Bruce McLaren for a couple of years and with Cosworth. So I've got about 4 years' experience before getting involved with this.
How do you rate your chances of success in the first season?
It's very difficult to answer that. When one's so closely involved, it's very difficult to see it objectively. But we've got a very good racing organisation, both the March organisation and Ken Tyrrell, and a superb set of drivers in Stewart, Amon, Siffert and Andretti. We're very lucky. So I really feel that if it's not successful, it's going to be the fault of our own organisation rather than the fault of anything else.
Is there anything special about this design that distinguishes it from other cars?
Very little, purely from the point of view of keeping our feet on the ground. We had to build a car that was straightforward and simple so that we could build it quickly, design it quickly, and there should be a minimum number of snags in development. Whether it works out like that remains to be seen, but it's, as you can see, basically a very standard Grand Prix car.
Are there any special features about this car?
There are a few which are comparative details, but there's one which is fairly obvious, and that's these animal tanks, which you can see there. Now they serve several purposes. One is that they can be used to hold fuel for the extra long races. Secondly, they also provide a certain amount of down thrust, and hence grip, and hence extra braking, cornering and acceleration ability, whilst in fact slightly reducing the drag, very largely an aerodynamic aid.
Hurd's creation got a massive vote of confidence even before it left the drawing board. Jackie Stewart, reigning world champion, has decided to abandon the all-conquering Matra Ford to drive a 701 sponsored by Ken Tyrrell.
Jackie, when did you drive this car for the first time?
I haven't yet driven it. I'm going to drive it in a few minutes. Today will be the first time it's ever turned any wheels.
Are you reasonably optimistic?
Well, Scotsmen are pretty pessimistic, but I think as optimistic as I can be. It looks very good, it's well designed, well constructed, and there's no reason at all why it shouldn't be competitive.
You gave up a car that won the World Championship last year for a machine that didn't have 2 bolts together in October. Isn't this a bit of a gamble?
Well, it is a gamble, but there again, motor racing is one big gamble. I wanted a car that involved a few people that I was involved with, but at that time I certainly wanted a Ford engine. I wanted Ken Tyrrell to run the team for me. I wanted Dunlop tyres, and it was a question of finding a chassis that would be able to combine all of these things with the team that I had for 1969, which I think is the most important factor, and I think that the chassis is going to do that.
Do you reasonably expect to have some success early in the season, or do you think it'll take a few months to sort the car out?
I hope not. I'd like to think that if we do a lot of homework in Johannesburg before the Grand Prix, we should be competitive.
Behind Stewart will be the same 450 horsepower Ford Cosworth V8 engine used in the Matra Ford. Steering is rack and pinion. The 701 has a monocoque construction in 18-gauge aluminium. The nose cone incorporates integral fins. March are naturally overjoyed that their as yet untried creation is being associated with the really big names right from the start. Drivers like Andretti of America and Seifert of Switzerland will also be piloting 701s this year. With so much money and reputation at stake, it was something of an occasion when Jackie Stewart climbed aboard for the first time to find out if this was indeed a champion's car. The man who handles the finance and sponsorship for March Engineering is Max Mosley, a 29-year-old former barrister who also raced competitively until last year.
Well, the little bit you've seen of your new cars today, how are your feelings?
Well, we're very excited. All the indications are that they're going to be fully competitive. Chris Amon's confident he could get down under the record with one day's testing, and this is almost unprecedented for a new car.
So you ought to start the season fully fledged.
We hope so, unless we've got some nasty surprise in store. We think that after the testing in South Africa, it should be a fully competitive car by the time the South African Grand Prix comes.
Are you aware of the sort of fairy tale element of this whole enterprise? You know, there's so many hundreds of boys dream of racing cars and so on, and you seem to have created it almost overnight.
Well, we dreamed about it for quite some time. The thing started way back with Alan Rees and Robin Herd being at school together, and then Robin Herd and I were at Oxford together. And we've been interested in these and got into the thing. And we got together with Graham Coker here, who does the production as well. He's an old friend of Alan Rees's. And we decided that we could probably do it.
Well, the question that everybody wonders about, but most people are too polite to ask, is how much money does it cost?
Well, to run a Grand Prix team costs between £100,000 and £200,000 for the season, depending how well you do it. To set up a factory and a production side as well costs obviously more, but the production side you can finance in normal business by normal business methods. The other side, the Grand Prix team, you've got to find sponsors.
Well, you will be building cars, of course, to sell. Do you hope to make this a paying proposition?
We do. We are building cars to sell at the moment. We've already exceeded our target for orders by this time. And we delivered the first one, and they're now coming out 1 or 2 a week, and this is gradually speeding up. And one will never make a fortune at it, but it does help keep the whole thing on a sound financial basis.
Mosley's optimism seems well-founded, but there are still a few snags to be ironed out, as Jackie Stewart reported.
There's not enough room between the accelerator and the brake pedal to get my feet in.
Yeah, and they're all too far away.
Too far away.
I think do a bit of...
All of
whip that out and put the proper one in quickly and check it.
Good inch.
Minor adjustments apart, the world champion pronounced himself well satisfied with the new car. But the man whose opinion is even more important for March is the company's own driver, Amon. Amon, a New Zealander, was formerly chief driver with Ferrari. What were his first impressions of the 701?
Well, so far we've done very, very few laps, but I'm very, very happy with it. It's for a new car, it's extraordinarily good straight off. It feels basically right.
Do you think it'll be fully competitive by the time of the first Grand Prix in South Africa, or do you think it'll take a few races to sort it out?
No, I think it'll be competitive by the first race. We're going to spend about 3 weeks out there testing, leaving next week, and I think given some good methodical development work, I'm sure it can be a winner the first time out.
How much did you know about the March car when you agreed to drive this year?
Well, in fact, the final design hadn't been made when I signed on with them. The principal reason I signed is that I had a lot of confidence in the people involved in it, and I was sure that whatever they came up with would be good.
Enough confidence in an unknown car to give up a job as a #1 Ferrari driver?
Yes, very much so. I worked with Robin Hurd, the chief designer, when he was with McLaren's, and when we were both with McLaren's 4 or 5 years ago, and we formed a good working relationship then, and I'm looking forward to continuing this.
And if this isn't premature, who do you consider the chief threat this season?
Well, it's always difficult to say. I think I've got to leave that one.
Okay, thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
A slice of luck certainly won't come amiss, for promising as the March car may be, it's entering racing at a time when the Grand Prix scene is more competitive than it's been for a long time. March have shown that when it comes to getting a project off the drawing board and onto the track, they can move faster than anyone else in racing. It remains to be seen whether the cars themselves can do the same.